All right, I've been told to start. How you guys doing? Great, welcome to Hell Week, I guess. Should try to make your day, make the week a little bit brighter. A lot of people think that writing is hell, and content marketing can be hell, and having to blog can be hell. I'm gonna try to convince you that it's a lot easier than it sounds, and in fact, the reason why you should invest in content marketing is it is simply put the least cost acquisition channel if you can do it right. So I'm going to start with a history of content marketing, a framework through which you should think about your CPAs, that's cost per acquisition, ways to measure your content marketing efforts to make sure you're doing it right, and then some techniques about really like the call to action. Ultimately, why are you doing content marketing? For most of you guys, it's to get email addresses. Email addresses lead to customers, so getting that email address is the really key thing. So all right, let's start with a brief history of content marketing, and first probably we should define what the heck it is that we're talking about. Content marketing, this is something from Search Engine Land. I really like this definition. It's about creating content, publishing it, sharing it, with the goal of building the reputation and visibility of your brand. How many people like to get cold emails and cold calls? You are an exceptional person. Thank you for opening all of my emails. Most people don't, and in fact, the best definition that I've actually heard of what is content marketing, it's the way that marketers want to be marketed to. So basically, everyone except the guy who raised his hand in the front row. You want to have a need for something, you want to search for it, you want to read some interesting content about this interesting solution, and then slowly kind of navigate your way through to their call to action. And you want to be like, oh yeah, I'll sign up for that demo, or oh, this is great content, I want to sign up for their newsletter, and begin your purchasing journey that way. That's how most people want to be sold to, is they want to find what they're looking for by Googling it. So this is how you position yourself to do that. Now there's plenty of competition. AOL, this stat is actually, I think, a couple years old. People are generating shit tons of content. No surprise there. So the bar to be found is pretty high. Instead of just contributing to the noise, you need to be the signal, and you do that by creating content that people will actually share. And as you all probably know, the search engines are rewarding content that gets shared. They're all kind of sharing each other's data. And so Google knows when something is trending on LinkedIn or something's trending on Twitter. It's going to surface that content. It already is a major signal in PageRank. The other thing is you're not alone in producing content. Most B2B, particularly, marketers are doing this content marketing thing, generating content about their products, about their industry. However, the other stat in this same survey that Content Marketing Institute published is that content creation is the #1 problem. So you're also not alone if you're thinking, like, how the heck am I going to keep blogging? No one has time for this. I don't have time for this. My marketing team doesn't have time for this. Writing sucks. I don't want to do it. So we have some solutions that we'll go through for that. But first, I thought it might make sense to take a step back, actually take a step way back, and think about, like, okay, what is this really all about? What are we doing here? Writing is like 5,000 years old now. You probably all studied Epic of Gilgamesh in middle school. Perhaps the first piece of content marketing, I don't know. It was probably the first piece of writing, at least that's what Google said. Block printing, I think, is where things start to really get interesting, and the notion of being able to market becomes available because it's no longer monks writing on parchment by hand. You can actually start to mass produce stuff by chiseling on wooden blocks with some ink and then stamping things. But content marketing really takes a major turn, a major inflection point when the printing press gets invented. And this is when I'd really say content marketing began. This is when you start to have leaf letters in the town square, decrying the church or whatever was going on in the 14th and 15th centuries. But this is where marketers, I think, really start to become marketers. And we're going to fast forward like way. As soon as content becomes digital, again, the game changes. For 500 years, literacy rates go through the roof because owning content, owning books becomes a lot cheaper. It's no longer something that rich people or religious people do. The whole internet revolution, again, revolutionizes content. And you got it on browsers, and then Google comes around and figures out, hey, we gotta like really do something with all of these pages and help people find the relevant content. I go through all of this, like 5,000 years of history in like 2 minutes, because that really is what you're all, or what we're all doing when we're doing content marketing. It's just kind of the next step in this whole evolution of using writing to get people's attention and essentially to sell them things, whether it's an idea or a product or whatever it is that is important to you in your business. That's what we're up to with content. Okay, so we're gonna segue over into some interesting, I hope interesting ways to think about SEO versus SEM. Anyway, we'll just start with this. Okay. SEM is basically pay-per-click. This is Bing ads, this is AdWords, this is Facebook ads. These are things that, or these are ad units, these are resources that you're putting out there, you're paying for people to click. And as soon as you turn those resources off, the clicks go away. And if you do any experiments with ads, you'll find that at first, I mean, this is a highly simplified graph, first of all. On the y-axis is your cost per acquisition. On your x-axis is basically the volume, is kind of the dollars spent. And people who are in this market will tell you that over time, as you continue to grow your budget, it actually gets harder and harder and harder to keep your cost per click and your cost per acquisition down. The difference between a cost per click and a cost per acquisition is, let's just say you're spending $5 per click, and for every 10 clicks or something, you get 1 email address. So if you're doing 10 clicks, $5 a click, okay? So $50 is what it's costing you to get that amount of traffic. And then you back into what your acquisition is from there. It just gets harder as you do more volume. With SEO, that cost basically drives down to nothing. There's a high upfront fixed cost. That's why the y-axis, it's up there. But as you continue to drive traffic, as Google continues to pick up past blog posts that you've published, essentially your average cost drives down to, like, it basically asymptotes at 0. And this is the magic of content marketing. It's a fixed investment. You pay for it once, and then every click you get after you publish that blog post, from people finding it online or it being shared on Twitter or LinkedIn or something, your average cost is just going to keep dropping and dropping and dropping as long as that post keeps getting picked up. In practice, what people are doing is combining both. And it's in this way that you can keep your cost per acquisition relatively flat, because you have high upfront cost in producing content. You have a pretty low upfront cost when you're first starting out with SEM, but as you scale out, your cost of SEO and cost of content marketing is going to go down, while meanwhile your SEM is going to go up. It essentially, these two forces cancel each other out, and you're left with a nice, relatively flat average cost per acquisition that is scalable, sustainable, and this is essentially the holy grail of marketing, if you can do this. Some other stats, if you don't believe me that that downward curve on the cost per acquisition of content marketing actually does go down. HubSpot is probably the one company that is able to collect information on how frequently people publish and what their traffic is. HubSpot is a content, they're both a content management system, they're marketing automation, they have a CRM, they're kind of doing everything, and they're really built out for small businesses. Great company, by the way, if you haven't heard of them. So I trust this because they're actually able to directly measure both axes. And essentially what this says is the more frequently you publish your blog posts, the more frequently you publish, the more traffic lift you're going to get. And this y-axis is just sort of normalized at 100. So it's saying if you're publishing basically every day, if you're publishing one new blog post every day, on average, you're going to see a lift of about 400% versus if you didn't publish anything on your blog at all. This is an average, but they're collecting this data across like tens of thousands of blogs and tens of thousands of customers. And this is what this says. I've spoken to them. I was curious, like what happens when you extend that line, and it actually does start to asymptote off. It's not like you start publishing 100 posts a month, you're just gonna inflect up to infinity. No, the sweet spot, what they told me is marginal returns kind of start to diminish once you're publishing every day. So there's really no reason to publish more than once a day. If you can get up there, then you're in a pretty optimal spot. That's where the cost of generating that content and the marginal benefit of continuing to do so more or less equal out. So the long story short here is just try to publish once a day. That's where you want to get to. We get asked often, how long should my blog post be? It's a local guy, Noah Kagan. He's created all sorts of marketing softwares, like really smart, really good guy. AppSumo is one of them, and then SumoMe is another one to capture emails. He was able to collect some data. I think this is mostly on posts that he has pushed out onto LinkedIn, measuring interactions by word count. And you see the spike at the end. That's 1,900 words. Tim Ferriss also swears by long-form content. If you go to 4hourworkweek/blog, you won't really find blog posts under 2,000 words. That's just what he does. People find that it gets the most interactions, it gets the most shares. People respect that you put that much effort into something. And again, I think of this as just more signal versus noise. Most of the noise is in the 400 to 500 word range. If you want like real thought leadership, you want to stand out from everyone else who's publishing, it's like it's getting longer and longer and longer form. So that's also something to consider. That may mean you have to publish a little bit less because longer form content takes longer to create. If you outsource it, it's a little more expensive. You'll figure out what that balance is for yourself. And I also get asked a lot, is this true for B2C and B2B? I think this is primarily true for B2B. For B2C and the Instagram and Twitter game there, I actually don't have much information on that. My expertise is really more in B2B marketing. But the nugget that I'd leave you with is you just experiment. Try 500 word content, try 2,000 word content, try 5,000 word content, and see how it performs. And there are some really interesting ways to measure it. Starting with this. Yeah, I'll take a question, sure. Yes. So, yeah, the question is why do we see this little drop around 1,600 words? I don't know. I wish I could tell you, but I don't. Yeah, it's either like maybe that was just a really crappy post that Noah did, and it just didn't do very well. I don't know how many posts he was how many units are basically in the background of this data. There could have only been one 1,600-word post. Okay, one more question, then I'll keep going. The question was, do I know if this is statistically significant? I also do not know if this is statistically significant. I can tell you anecdotally, because Scripted is a marketplace for freelance writing and we can see what businesses are ordering, there is a very clear trend towards businesses ordering longer and longer form content. So much so that we actually had to rename our standard blog post from it being 400 words on average to 600 words on average, because people just kept ordering our long blog post. So we renamed our long blog post our standard blog post. And now a long blog post is 900 words. So more anecdotal than statistical there. So this is an analytics product that we created at Scripted because we kept getting asked, how do I measure the success of my content marketing? What we've done is we are now working with dozens and dozens of companies, sucking in their Google Analytics data and relating that information in an interesting way. We're looking at the very first point when a given link appeared in your Google Analytics. And we're calling that the publish date, like the date that you went live with a piece of content. And then we're looking at how long ago that was and how much traffic it got. So we can essentially show you what's evergreen, and evergreen content is something that you published more than a year ago that continues to drive traffic. Again, that evergreen content, that's what's taking your SEM curve down, or your SEO curve down. We also will show you what we call transitioning content, things that are between 12 and 3 months old that are probably moving their way into this awesome evergreen state, and then like recent content. So you can look at your blog traffic and understand how old are those posts that are getting these clicks. So this is an actual customer of ours. We like to see about 60 to 70% of your traffic, of your blog traffic, coming from old content, evergreen content. And that's what these guys have. These dips are when their servers went down. And then you can see like they sent out the, sorry guys, our server went down, and that's like the spike right after. I'll take a question.
Is there any threat to having the date on the blog post? So maybe I see something that's evergreen, but it's 2 years old, and maybe I don't want to read it?
So the question is, is there a threat to having the date of publish on your blog post? We actually decided to take dates off. Another tactic is whenever you publish something new, you should go back to your old posts and then link those old posts to the new post, and then vice versa. In your new post, publish links back to old posts, and those old posts publish links back to new posts. Whenever you edit something, depending on how your WordPress is configured, that may resurface something old back to the top. And they usually perform really, really well. And that's a great way to drive your evergreen traffic up to help people surface it. I don't know if there's anything bad about leaving the dates on, but I've been interviewing a lot of people for our podcast, and I'm hearing this tactic more and more of people just going into their WordPress template and stripping out the date for this reason. Yeah. The question is, if you're a Scripted customer, can you do this on a competitor? No, because this requires OAuth into your own GA. Yeah. And I don't think people would keep giving us permissions if they knew we were giving it to their competitors. So another case study. This one is something that you don't want to see. Here is a blog that is essentially dormant and dying. all of their traffic is coming from evergreen content. You don't want to see this. And if you drew a line, you can see that that's kind of, traffic's going the wrong direction. Because they're also, and the next iteration of our analytics product is going to predict kind of a decay. There's always going to be some kind of a natural content decay, and that's influenced by Google and others, that the content, like anything, just doesn't last forever. So if you built up a library of content, just know that you can't write it out forever. And that's what it looks like these guys are doing, and it doesn't work. Here's what, if you started to use us and plugged in your blog into Scripted and allowed us to suck in your analytics data, this is what you guys might look like. You can see the evergreen just starting to pop up because, I mean, it looks like they launched their blog in early 2015. So in early 2016, we're starting to see the beginnings of some evergreen traffic, and you can see the evergreen really starting to bump. They're also publishing more recent, and you're seeing some nice healthy transition, which is that middle band that will eventually become evergreen, and this is the snowball effect that you want to see in content marketing. And if I could just summarize the benefit of content marketing in one single chart, this would be it. This is why you blog. This encaptures everything that I pitched to you about starting a blog as quickly as possible, even though you are resource strapped, even though maybe it's just one or two of you on a team, even though content can be pretty expensive to do if you outsource it. This is the benefit. It's just simply the lowest cost per acquisition you can get. Just check on time here. So I'll breeze through this kind of stuff. We also tell you things like the sources of the traffic, and if you even drill down into your evergreen or your recent. For your evergreen content, you want to make sure that you're actually seeing a pretty good distribution of traffic across all of your evergreen posts. For recent stuff, it's okay if things go kind of viral and you have like one dominant recent post, because that's the post that will probably become evergreen later on. We'll help you show that. And then another little pro tip on like how to actually do this within your organization. Create an editorial calendar. The way that we use ourselves is just a Google spreadsheet. And we assign certain pieces to our internal staff, and then we use Scripted for other pieces of our blog writing. And you can see here, we have some staff people writing stuff, and then we have Scripted writing stuff. And it's just as simple as putting dates in one column and topics in another column, and just kind of get it done that way. And it's an easy way to organize. But most of the time, if you just say to your team, hey, let's start publishing on our blog, they're going to say, okay, cool, we'll start publishing on our blog. And then a week later, there's nothing on your blog, because you need to, this is like the minimum level of diligence in order to actually start a blog so that you can start to get that snowball traffic. Simple, but sometimes it's the simple, obvious things that need to be said. And then finally, walk through some email capture techniques from some other popular blogs. If you're using WordPress, doing this is amazingly simple. This is called gated content, and there are plugins that will help you do this. You can use Gravity Forms or other things. The idea is you drive someone to a page, and then you have some piece of related content. Usually it's longer form, some kind of like sexier, higher value, like here's a white paper, here's a case study, here's like the 10 secrets to doing whatever it is that you guys do. But sorry, in order to download this, give us your email address. You've all seen forms like this. It's very easy to do. And the reason that you've seen so many forms like this is because it works. It's highly successful. People swear by it. You get that email address, you nurture the hell out of it, and then they convert. That's just That's just it. I talked about Noah Kagan. I'll mention his name again because he's kind of the man, and this is what SumoMe does. It's, again, a WordPress plugin, like a little JavaScript that pops up at the bottom of a post and gets you, kind of calls people to put in their email address, click a button, that's it. And it is super ridiculously simple to install. So Sales Hacker, I think they've probably spoken here, and Sales Hacker and I think 500 are pretty close. This is what they use, and Sales Hacker actually has some great content about content marketing and, of course, sales. Another thing just to remember, super easy to do if you're using WordPress, but basically any content management system does this out of the box. Just check off whatever settings you need to do to get readable URLs. This is more of an SEO 101 tip, but when you're first creating your blog, you just gotta like set it up to do this. You can Google how to do it for WordPress. It's like literally just checking off a couple boxes. And then finally, and sorry this is hard to see, but Mixpanel's blog, they have their newsletter capture right at the top. There are a million ways that you can do it. You just have to experiment. Regardless, the mantra of content marketing essentially is more is more. No matter how crappy your calls to action are, no matter how poor your funnel is, just writing more posts will drive more traffic and you will get more customers. You will get increasingly more customers if you test some calls to action, if you try a few of the different capture techniques that I just went through. It's going to be specific to your audience, it's going to be specific to the channel that they came from, but this will always hold true. How true it holds is just going to depend on how good you are at your funnel. Outsourcing actually is easy, and I'm not just saying this because this is what my company does. Whether you use scripted or hire your own freelancers on Upwork or Craigslist or hire your cousin's friends to be a summer intern and just like write stuff for your blog, as soon as you start doing it, and you'll always want to start in-house, I definitely recommend that you don't just tell the intern to like figure out this content marketing blogging thing. Put the legwork in to do it in-house, get some idea of what works, create a style guide, create the editorial calendar, and then outsource it. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to identify a good author, get them comfortable with your style, like who you guys are, how salesy you want to be, how funny you want to be, how analytical or technical you want to be. And then once you have that document figured out, you just kind of go to town with it. And the other thing about outsourcing is eventually you will want to hire a content manager. It should be on your hiring roadmap right around either like your major seed or Series A. Sooner you get a full-time content manager on board, the sooner all of this will again become easier and easier to do. You want to empower that content manager to produce as much as possible. So if you just have one person in-house who controls your voice, who checks everything for typos, who maintains your style guide, give that person the permission or the resources or whatever to outsource. Have them hire the freelancers. And that person becomes your editor-in-chief in a way. And rather than that person writing all of the articles him or herself, there's a lot more scale there if that person is editing rather than writing. And then the final thing is, if you're wondering like what to write about, just tell good stories. And the pro tip that I have here is, as you start to scale your businesses, and everyone is going to have their own kind of proprietary data, like things that you're seeing in your database that no one else is because you guys are all starting your own unique businesses. People love that stuff. And if you can start to surface stories about the data that you're collecting, it will perform very, very well. And that technique you should still apply to even the more obvious or mundane topics. Tell good stories. Like people just respond to well-written, high-quality stuff, and that again ties back into this whole signal versus noise ratio that you want to be the signal, not the noise. Was there a question up front? So question is, how do your kind of your marketing teams and your sales teams overlap, and the content manager role, how do they work with the sales team to make sure that things are aligned? I love this question because I actually used to work in sales. Before I became CEO of Scripted, I was actually our head of sales for a while and did some early on like email marketing. So totally know where you're coming from with this. Couple of points. First one is, as you know, or you will soon know, nothing gets salespeople happier than inbound leads. Just going back to what I started with. Cold emailing, cold calling sucks. Sucks for the people on the other end of the line, and it sucks for the sales rep doing it. Inbounds are like gold to a sales team, and you want to be able to hire good salespeople. Tell them what % of leads are coming inbound. And if you want, and if you can say like, hey, 75% of our leads are inbound, you're going to be able to hire top sales talent. You're going to be able to hire great VP of sales, great sales reps, because no sales rep worth their salt will want to come in and do cold emailing unless they're going into Salesforce or something like that, because they're going to have amazing training and whatever. That's the benefit of like going to work at LinkedIn or Salesforce right now. If they're going to join a startup and do crappy cold emailing, like it's going to be a hard sell. But if they're going to join a startup and like most of your stuff is coming inbound, then you're going to hire great sales reps. The role of the content manager is to generate those inbound leads and to provide the collateral that sales reps can use to help close deals. And also, again, having managed sales teams myself, the reps love it when they get a question from a prospect and they can say, oh yeah, we actually wrote a blog post about that. Or, oh yeah, we have an ebook about how to use that feature. Or, oh yeah, you want to know what's different about us versus our 5 other competitors? Well, we actually wrote this like really neat case study about how this one company tried those other 3 competitors you mentioned and still chose us. All of those pieces are generally written by the content manager and also can be outsourced. Yeah.
Is there any value whatsoever to having comments?
That's a good question. So, is there any value in having comments on your posts? I still tend to think so, because most of those commenting engines will tell people when there's been other comments added, and it just generates more traffic back to those posts. The comments are also highly indexable, and if I'm sure there are other growth marketing presentations that have already talked about how you should be going out and commenting on other people's blogs. Well, you do that because Google will treat that as like legitimate good content, and we still get traffic from places where people mentioned us in Quora feeds and in blog posts about content marketing tactics, and people in the comments will say like, oh, well, you should try scripted.com. That still gives us traffic. So people will search for like, how should I do content marketing? And then Google will surface that article because of just the more rich content that exists in the content or the comment section. Yeah.
So,
So question is about long-form content, specifically ebooks. It's not just writing it, then you got to do the infographic, you got to do the design. Is there like a least frictional path to like getting that all done? Unfortunately, no. If it was that easy, or if we knew of a way to make it easy, we would actually be doing it ourselves. We get asked a lot to do design. Like, do you guys actually just do the design yourself? Instead, we have partnerships with other companies that do the infographics. So what I would say is, it starts with the writing, get the writing done, and then there are other companies like Scripted that are varying degrees of expense, but there's another marketplace called Demly Design that we recommend a lot. You take the writing, you go to another design marketplace, and then they'll get it done for low cost. You can also see if you have an in-house designer who will do it. When we've done ebooks, we have actually, of course, used Scripted to write, and then we've hired graphic designers, or I guess graphic layout designers on Upwork, and had really good success doing that. An ebook generally takes 3 weeks. Yeah, depending on like how many iterations you want to do. You'll get the first draft in a week and a half, and then you send things back for edits. So yeah, figure about 3 weeks.
So I get blogs, we get basically my blogger takes 3 or 4 industry articles written, and then they kind of comment on it. Is that a legitimate style of blog? Blog, or do you look for primarily deep content? Right? This happened in the industry. This is what we think about. Some interesting things. So that kind of acts as an accumulator of news in some regard. Is that legitimate blogging, or is that? Is that a stuff?
Yeah. So. Question is like aggregating headlines or aggregating news from other sources legitimate blogging? Absolutely, actually. Some of my favorite content marketers in the content marketing industry, so these are content marketers for content marketing companies, do this. And some of their newsletters are actually like the best, because they'll send out a newsletter that'll have like these terrific headlines, and then I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, like how do these guys write all this great content in the space of like a week, since their last newsletter? And then like I click over to it, and it's referencing someone else's blog. But it still got me to click their newsletter. It got me to land on their blog page, and then it's basically a synopsis with a link to the original text, which is the right etiquette, it's the right thing to do. If you're going to do that, you can host it on your site, but you got to link to the original. Otherwise, Google will slap your hands. So yeah, like totally legitimate to do that. It's called curation. That's like the industry term for it, and totally fine to do. Yeah.
Yeah, what about outreach? Because obviously just publishing content builds your incredible audience. So what are your thoughts on that? Is it something that you like?
The question is about outreach and how to distribute your content once you have it up on your blog. This is probably, I think, the next content-related IPO is going to be in this space. We had HubSpot go public. We had Marketo go public. I think Outbrain or Taboola, but if I were betting, I'd probably bet on Outbrain to go public next. They have raised $200 million, and they are the ad unit at the bottom of the article on like CNN.com and Wired, and they're like, if you liked this article, you might also like. And then often it's kind of BuzzFeedy, like clickbaity kind of content with some attractive person or some outrageous headline. But my prediction is that ad unit down there, which doesn't look like a Google ad, it looks like native, and this category, by the way, again, the industry term for this is native advertising. these native ad units, I think, will continue to become more and more legitimate as the benefit of creating like real, legitimate, non-clickbaity content continues to rise. Therefore, people will be willing to spend more and more money on this kind of content, and it'll just like legitimize that whole ad unit down there. So really the answer to your question is, when you don't have budget for advertising, it's just all of the hacky stuff. Look on Quora, look on Twitter, find other blogs where people are talking about the same thing, put a link to your blog in the comments. Yeah, I think like the Quora feeds are just a great place to put links to your blogs. You're doing most of this stuff manually until you can spend, call it $5,000 or something a month on something like Outbrain. And then you can also use Google Ads, generally push people out to a landing page there, and then you might want to experiment with a link from the landing page to some articles on your blog to see if like that captures people. But yeah, the way to get distribution, like really, it's hard work at first. Then when you have budget, you can use like an Outbrain or Taboola or OneSpot to do this. I guess I have maybe time for one more question. Yeah. All right. Here we go.
For companies that are just getting started, what do you think about posting their blog?
So that's actually another great point. Publishing on LinkedIn, like right straight into Pulse, publishing on Medium, straight into Medium. I think it's great. There is some SEO cost to it, and what I might recommend instead is create your own blog, publish to your blog, create the Medium channel, and then at the top of the Medium article say, we originally published this on our own blog. Put a link to your blog, but then put the full text in Medium, it's fine. Generally, Google rewards the place that published it first. And if Medium links to your blog, then I think, and like, I'm not the SEO expert, but I'm pretty sure that is still good SEO practice. So like Google will know, okay, your blog was the source, Medium is republishing it, but that's still a great way to get distribution, get people to be aware of the brand, and yeah, I mean, I think Medium's going to be awesome for that. A couple of things. I'm on Twitter at rbucks, ryan@scripted.com. Please feel free to email me if you need any help using Scripted, using Upwork, using one of my competitors. I don't care. I'll still respond to you. But we have a coupon for 500 startups, portfolio companies. Just when you sign up, put in 500 startups. We'll give you half off of our very, very low membership fees. Thank you for your time, and happy to keep chatting after the live stream goes down.